Great. Welcome all to this session on open banking from Fintech Connect. My name is Annette Paulus. I am an independent fintech analyst, and I have a long background working in different functions in finance, but always with strategy and innovation. Currently, I'm mostly doing research and this type of moderating of panels, which is a great joy. Today, we're going to discuss open banking, what it looks like, and how it's moving forward. And that seems very appropriate. It started out in Europe mostly as a compliance exercise and bringing much trouble over different issues as we started out in payments, but quite quickly moved into different sorts of innovation, where we've been looking at different business models, different platforms, different solutions, and working with APIs and partnerships. So we've come a long way already, and we have a great panel with us today to discuss how this will go on moving forward. So I'll just say to you in the audience that this is about having a great experience for all of us. So if you have questions or comments, please post them and we'll take them as we move along so far as time allows. I think we have still a panelist missing, but we will start just slightly by asking the first two panelists to introduce themselves and to talk a little bit about what they're working with in open banking now. It's great to have this panel with us because it represents all banks that have been front runners in innovation in this area. So I'm really looking forward to this. I'm wondering, Jose, would you like to start introducing yourself?
Of course. Thank you for having me here. I'm Jose Luis Navarro. I work for BBVA. Now I'm the head of strategy of open banking from the holding unit. So I'm helping all the banks we have in the geographies to get up to the level of offering open banking. As you said, it started in Europe. We also have some US initiative at the beginning, but some of the other countries, they didn't really have anything. So we are trying to build the same offering, the same message, and the same, if you say, procedures and behavior for all of them, right? Which is not easy. I'm really glad to be in this panel again. For sure, together with Anilla, we will share everything we got. We won't keep any secrets. Nice to meet you.
Great, thank you. Andrea, would you like to go next?
Yes, thank you, Annette. My name is Agneja Gailane, and I am community manager in Nordea Open Banking. And greetings from Stockholm, Sweden, where I'm located. And Nordea is a leading bank in Nordics with home markets in 4 Nordic countries. And I would dare to say that we are also front runners in open banking in our region. And I have the honor to be with open banking since we started this more than 5 years ago. As Annette, you pointed in the beginning, we started this as a compliance initiative to cover PSD2 requirements. However, when we started to discuss with the community, with the developers, with fintechs, we soon realized that open banking and APIs actually brings much more than simply compliance. And that's why we actually started to go beyond, let's say, beyond boundaries of PSD2 already since very early beginning of our journey. And I think right now we are harvesting from that, as right now I would say PSD2 area and PSD2 APIs, as we call them, they are already business as usual. We are having hundreds of third parties, millions of API calls. So right now we are actually already working actively on commercial APIs and what we can bring towards customers. So, and my daily work is to deal with the customers, with the partners, with the third parties, to engage, to understand their needs, interact with them, get the feedback, and build APIs together.
Great. So we're, for the audience to know, in a situation where we have problems for our last panelist to join. We have Stephen Wright joining us from NatWest, and I hope he'll be onboarded quite soon. In the meantime, I will start asking questions to the other. I'll bring him up to speed when we get him on, hopefully soon. So I think one of the things that's so interesting is where are we with open banking at the moment, and how is it changing the way banks work? One of you, Jose, perhaps you'd like to start talking about it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, in fact, open banking is a new way of thinking, right? It's a fundamental change in banking. Like when it appeared the internet, right, and then it appeared like the web banking, and which was never heard of before, and now we have the opportunity of doing open banking, which is to turn inside out the guts of the bank. So this is about offering parts of the bank to customers, or maybe to non-customers, and even offer them through a third-party channel. So not even in your channels anymore, and that's really the big change. I mean, banks, we have been traditionally and historically prepared to have everything in our vertical, right? We have our branches, we have our marketing, we have our areas, and we know where we should send the customer, and we have people attending them, and then we have our webs, or we have our apps, but everything is ours, right? And it turns out that when we have the whole bank prepared for this, for managing our area, we have to go outside of the area, and then we need to find customers in beyond our area. We don't know where the customer is coming from. The customer really belongs to a third party, but then you need to be able to understand that customer to offer that person a product, right? So it looks easier than it is, because really we were not prepared, and that's why, like Agnija said, if you have started preparing earlier, now you face there's a challenge for all of us, but you are better prepared for the challenge. For those banks that are starting to prepare, they see that the amount is really huge. So I tell you, it's turning completely how banks are thinking. I think we people working in open banking, we are one of the pioneers trying to spread the message about why this is useful, why it's good to reach customers outside of our experience, and why do we think the future will be like that.
So I think that we now have Stephen on board. Can you hear us, Stephen?
I can.
Great.
Sorry about the delay. I've now sorted it out.
Fantastic. We were starting on the first question, but I think that it would be a good idea for you to introduce yourselves and talk about how you work with open banking, and I'll let you and Agnija talk about where we are today a little later when you've introduced yourself. So please go ahead if you feel you're up to it.
Yeah, hi, yes. So thank you for the opportunity. My name is Stephen Wright. I'm the Regulation Standards Lead for NatWest Group with respect to kind of open banking, open finance. I own compliance delivery and kind of industry engagement, and I'm currently focused on delivering sweep.
Fantastic. So, like I said, we have a fantastic panel covering the whole spectrum over strategy to customers and legal as well. So a great opportunity to have you here. And Jose was just starting us out, telling how open banking is turning banks inside out. And I think, Agnija, you worked earlier in the Nordics, and particularly in Nordea. Would you like to talk about how you feel this is going for banks?
Yes, I fully agree with Jose's comment already, that it's twisting understanding how we see banking, and also we have observed a very long journey. And indeed, in the beginning, when we started this as PSD2, and when we were talking with the colleagues, with other banks, of course, there was a threat that this is a threat, and we were a bit scared that we as a banks, not only we, but also other banks will lose this customer facing position, because of course customers will be able to go to any third party application to use financial services. However, again, as more we talked, as more we engaged with the third parties, we realized that it's not really a competition. It's actually expanding the reach. And yeah, indeed, customer is not anymore going to Nordea Bank as an office, as a building, not opening our doors, not opening maybe our net bank, but it's still our customer. So no matter which application or which service a customer is using, if they need financial service, if they need to manage their accounts in order to do some shopping or to get some financial advices, they anyway need this financial service. So it's more about offering financial support, financial service, rather than simply using the bank. So it's definitely an opportunity for us, because it also brings us towards more customers. So it's not only our customers now, but actually we have opportunity also to reach out to other third-party customers. So it's definitely changing mindsets. So on the one hand, we are getting a bit far away from the customers, but actually we are getting closer to customer needs and what exactly they are willing to get from a bank in a shape of financial service and financial advice.
Stephen, from a NatWest perspective, does that ring true to you as well?
It does. So we took a decision early 2017, and we kind of looked at open banking PSD2 as an opportunity. And that's been the kind of ethos all the way through our delivery of open APIs. And we're keen to see the market develop for premium APIs and kind of look ahead to open finance. We've also kind of see ourselves equally as a bank, but also as a third party, because we act now as a AISP and a PISP in our own right. And it's really kind of driven a change in strategy. And we're talking about being the bank of APIs, being an API-enabled bank. And how do we go and drive innovation, work with partners, come up with new digital journeys to meet existing but also emerging customer needs.
So I'd like to ask you a question on the business model here that might be different for different banks, because we hear sometimes that banks should deliver the tubes and the back end, and you're sort of more talking about orchestrating the platform. Are there different? And we've also seen that different organizations like MobiKwik or even institutions like Krisken have been out with different types of models that you could work with in a bank. And how do you see this playing out now that we are coming closer to the realization of strategy? Are there different models, or will you be going down the same sort of path in the banks?
There are different models, and I think what we're doing at the moment is doing all of them, if I'm being, because a bank as a provider of information, you've got to deliver on the regulation and meet the regulation and enable data sharing with third parties. But at the same time, there's an opportunity there to look at what other data is useful and look at the kind of more premium rate API, and to enter into commercial contracts and models to share that and to kind of monetize your investment in open banking, open finance. But also, you are an authorized institution, so you are an AISP, PISP. So if you're thinking about customers yourselves, why wouldn't you start to think about, well, how can I use accounting aggregation? How can I use payments? How can I bring that into journeys and help the customer bring their account information together, or create new experiences around things like where you want to share you're renting a home and there's 4 of you, and you want to be able to pool and share bills together, etc. Open banking can enable that using the APIs and using other accounts to be connected. So why wouldn't you look at delivering that proposition, given how big the rental sector and how important that is to your customer base? So at the moment, I can see you can play both. And it's similar to what telecoms was always like. So in the telecoms industry, you always had a wholesale side and a customer-facing side. And I think it's a similar business model we're seeing here in banking emerging.
I see nodding, so I suppose Agnaya and Jose might want to comment on this as well. Agnaya?
Yes, yes, I again agree with what has been said, and also Nordea is trying to go in various directions. So we are acting as AISPSP, and we also are third party towards other banks. So these two models are already like natural for us. We also providing the platform, so we are able to provide APIs, our own APIs, PSD2 APIs, commercial APIs, which are built by other organizations, by our colleagues in commercial or in premium area. And of course, we can also provide platform for our partner, so basically external APIs, and see what are use cases and benefits and business cases there. So we are exploring multiple ways.
Okay, Jose, you too?
Well, I agree that there are different business models. Okay, that we from BBVA, we just made ourselves the question at the beginning: what do we want to become? So we want to become like a rental place, like it could be really pure bank as a service. The answer was not yet, because I think, or we think first we need to excel in the other part, which is having our platform, having our APIs, and making partnerships with them, and selling our services, right? So we value more that route right now. We acknowledge that there is the bank as a service part, and also that there is the one of offering APIs from other institutions, but currently for us they are far away. So we really want to become better at what we are doing now before exploring those opportunities, because we think it deviates a little bit about what we are like a bank. So we are like a bank. What do we want? We want to sell more products. We want more customers. You understand that's a little bit our drivers. So if these are our drivers, the part of business we have to do are more likely the partnerships. I mean, including PSD2, which I know PSD2 is like everybody is talking about them. For us, is the regulation, and we like Nordea, we are looking beyond PSD2 much more. Okay, I think this is the green field for open banking.
So we hear that this is difficult, and we will come back to some of the challenges just in a little while. Maybe this is the key word to it. We have a question: why hasn't open banking made the impact that people assumed it would? And this could be the first step into some of the challenges that you're facing in this work. Who would like to go first with this?
I'm happy to go first. I also think it's part of the old adage that people overestimate the short-term change and underestimate the long-term change. So I would agree that open banking has not made the impact that was envisaged. But I also would say that open banking really has only recently been delivered and recently come to a high enough quality and consistency of service for people to actually build propositions above. And if I look at payments, for example, we launched a payments API back in 2018. If I look at payments since then, to date, 75% of those payments were actually made this year.
Yeah.
And you are seeing now the growth happening now. And in the same way, if you look at account information services, it is where there is I don't think account aggregation has been that interesting to people. It hasn't really met a definite need, but when you see people using cloud accountancy and using the account information data pulled into that, you can see that's consistently growing. You can see where people come up, such as PayPal, and using the APIs to be able to kind of validate an account. There's a compelling use case, compelling reason there, and you've seen customers month on month use the service. So I think we have underestimated or overestimated, I think, how quick the ramp up will be. We are starting to see a lot of activity now, but people have got to kind of get used to it, and the name open banking doesn't necessarily help in the messaging either, because it doesn't really give you confidence as a consumer that it's a kind of secure service, does it?
No, I think that's a great answer. So feel free if anyone wants to add to it, but otherwise, perhaps we should talk about some of the challenging that you are experiencing when working with this turnaround in the organization. You were about to say something, Agaya, I think.
Yes, well, maybe just to add on top of this question. So I think it's also it's not, there's no one single answer. We need to look, for instance, on geographical location and the market tendencies. For instance, in Nordics, we already before open banking, before PSD2, had very strong like fintech market position. So customers already were using like different account aggregation, planning tools, payment solutions, payment services. So when open banking came into force, I would say it was more like efficiency exercise for fintechs, just to move from other channels, how they were accessing banks, to APIs. And maybe it was also exercise for both, for fintechs and for banks to learn to cooperate on agreed terms according to PSD2 space. So it was a lot of learning, understanding, adjusting towards each other. And I think we are still in a very early journey. So I think only now we are looking, and fintechs are looking, and what kind of new business cases, what kind of new business models and use cases actually open banking beyond PSD2 actually can bring.
But would you like one of you to comment on some of the challenges that you're seeing in making this change in the business of the banks? You're all from big banks, and I assume that regulation and standards might be two of them. But
yes,
what kind
yes, well,
of
I mean, we can be discussing a lot about challenges, because there are a lot and big ones, right? You just said two of them that are jeopardizing the progress of open banking, right? One is the regulation that is not in uneven regulation in all geographies. We claim that open banking is open also because of the borders. I mean, in the end, you can make an API and the API be used in my bank in Spain or my bank in Argentina, but it turns out it's not true because the regulation taxes different how it's working in Spain and how it could work in Argentina, or maybe there is not even regulation in Argentina, right? So in the end, you face that if you are able to create a good practice or a good offering on open banking in one country, that cannot be translated in plug and play to another country. We will face a lot of difficulties, more than the system itself, which the system may be different and you need changes and tweaks. It's about the regulation is not ready. And what a product, if a product is really successful in Europe, in Mexico, for example, is forbidden. The regulator cannot see the same figure of a third party, or they think the third party should be regulated, which then is banking regulation. And if you as a third party to be bank regulated, of course, they don't stop running. Right? It's impossible. It's impossible to get an agreement like that, and that is something that has to change. And if we want really open banking to be open, or to reach the status of embedded finance, there should be a conducting line, and it should be general through the different countries, and the same with the standards, right? So there is a lot of standards. They're really nice, all of them. No one of them is wrong, but then there are too many. There should be a few standards, and all of them should be exchangeable, and they should recognize one to each other, right? And that's not happening. So I think that's where the regulator should put the pressure in verifying that the standardization is correct for different countries to mesh and to cooperate, and also that there are not black holes of regulation. Okay, if not, for example, you made an API for a corporate company, the corporate company can only use it in one country because it's not for use in a different one, and then that defeats the purpose of having a corporate using your API, because the API wants covered in all the countries. That's a pretty easy example.
It's quite an interesting subject that you're bringing up, that the standard is different, because when we look at Europe, at least, we get the feeling that the idea was that standards should come from the markets, so that there was a framework put in place, and we're waiting for the market to agree on how to work with standards. So that's one of the struggles, I assume. Stephen, would you want to comment before I turn to Agneya to talk also about the mindset in the organization?
So I would agree with the earlier comments on the standards. I also think there needs to be a consistent kind of regulatory framework. So you need to kind of decide, are you going to have authorized participants for open finance? Or how are they going to be accredited? What's going to be the trust framework? Are you going to lift and shift the same trust framework as you have in open banking, or are you going to create a new trust framework, and how are you going to deal with identity in open finance? How are you going to also kind of deal with the fact that you've got a long tail of providers in open finance, and there are some small pension companies, etc., who don't actually have the technical infrastructure to do APIs, and that's quite a big challenge. So how do you kind of work that out? Consumer protection. So you have a PSD2 liability model. Are you going to extend that into open finance, or are you going to create a new liability model? So there's quite a lot, I think, to consider to how do you get the framework right.
Yeah, that makes good sense. We have a question also on some very specific part of the fact that some of the standards, like SWIFT standards, are coming into place in the payment sector. And what you're mentioning is that when we're trying to build the open banking into open banking or open finance, it needs a much broader, I suppose, comment. So I think perhaps we'll leave the specifics to the side and look also a little bit on how the mindset in the bank is working when you do a change like you do with regard to your relation to their customers. Agneya, would you like to comment on that?
Yes. Again, when I look back on the history, when I joined open banking, we even invented like new term or word like open banking evangelism. So we were acting as evangelists, both internally and also externally, to actually bring this knowledge, bring understanding what means starting with PSD2, what means these PSD2 APIs, what means to share data, what are pros, what are cons. So it was a lot of education work where we're educating our colleagues, our managers, our customers, also our partners. So it was a lot of this mindset change, how to see open APIs not as a threat, but also how to see it as an opportunity, and how actually brings these APIs closer to the customer. So actually we can help customer to help with their pain points with, for instance, communicating with a bank with all those heavy batch processes, batch payment, submission, very, very heavy and old school methods how customers were contacting bank and getting, for instance, account statements. So simple product like account statement, account transactions. So it was a lot of education to actually bring customer understanding and colleagues understanding how to start to analyze pain points, analyze the problems what customers have with their treasury, with their banking services, and start to build on top like new potential solutions using API technology. And finally, we are harvesting from that, but it was really, really long journey. It's not happening in one day.
I think you said when we prepared this panel that the bank is becoming invisible to the customers, and that leads nicely into the one question that I'd like to ask you, as we promised in the introduction, before leading on to a last comment from each of you. And we are running short of time here, so perhaps a little shorter answers. But what is the relation between becoming invisible and what we call embedded finance these days?
Yeah, I can quickly start and be short. So indeed, we are becoming invisible, what I told in the beginning, but we are actually, with the help of API technology, we are bringing financial services into the daily flow of customer business on their daily activities, what they are doing or performing in their towards their sales to their customers. So we are simply there where we need to be in the time what customer wants and in the step when customer needs us. So indeed, it's not like you are doing your business in one corner and then you suddenly turn around and start to do banking, but it's actually one very smooth flow where banking services are embedded in a customer offering, in internal offering, and also in the offering towards their own customers.
I see Jose nodding.
Well, yes. It's not that I don't like the word invisible. Okay, maybe it's better to say less visible. Okay, just understanding how a bank thinks. If you say we are going to become invisible to customers, then open banking unit is doomed in the bank, right? So it's not really about invisibility. It's about banking will still be needed. Okay, the most of the services we are talking about, in the end, there is a banking product at the bottom line, right? And that has to be offered by a bank. The point is how the bank access to the customer, and access to the customer outside of the bank. So you are not anymore in your grounds. You are not protected in that sense. Okay, and the customer belongs to maybe another company, and that company reaches out those customers and offers your product. So it's more than invisible, is less visible, or is like Agnia said, it's contextual, right? So you don't bother the customer every time, do you want an account, do you want an account? No, when the customer needs the account, at the time they need the account, and when in the application they want, they will ask for it, and then you will be the provider. So I think, and that's where the value of open banking is. Okay, it's not really a disintermediation from the customer. It's just that you open your network, or how to capture those customers, and how to offer them products, and how to solve their problems. So that's what we like to say in BBVA at least.
Yeah, great. Stephen, would you like to comment on this as well?
Yeah, I think you're in a kind of transitionary phase. So at the moment, you've added APIs as a new channel. So that goes along with online banking, mobile banking, your corporate banking platforms, etc. But where you're going now in this kind of data sharing world and kind of focus on digital journeys is that the journey becomes more important, and the focus is on the journey, what the customer need is being met. And I don't think the bank goes invisible, but the bank is then part of that journey, and there might be other partners or other parties in that journey to facilitate a complete experience for the customer. But I can see the shift from channels to journeys.
That's a nice word, journeys, and the change process. So we're coming to the end of time, and that's far too soon. There's so much more we could have discussed here, but I'll just leave all of you to have sort of 1 minute to say, how do you see the future of open banking and open finance? And I wonder, Stephen, since you had the word, would you like to start first?
So I do see open banking evolving into open finance, but I think there's a lot of building blocks that have got to be get right, and for the framework for it to kind of be accelerated.
Okay, Jose?
I do also think the future is the open finance. I just think it will become natural for the customers. Now is something new, they don't really understand, but not in the short term. We already know the short term is overrated, but maybe in the midterm, people will feel like it's natural to do banking outside of the banks.
Right?
Yeah, open finance, embedded finance, definitely, and maybe even open data. Of course, there needs to be much building blocks, as its word was using. So regulation, understanding of all parties, customers, banks, regulators, maybe other industries as well, not only finance, but beyond finance. So we are still in the beginning of this journey.
Which sort of brings us back to the question of the impact when it comes to that. And as we had a little while ago, and I think there was one question in the audience that I think you have answered, although I haven't asked it specifically to you. Somebody asked, would you like to learn from each other? And I think that the frankness with which you've been discussing this here shows very much that, yes, you will learn from your colleagues as well, from your third parties. Anyone wants a very short comment on that before we end?
We are very actively learning from each other, from banks, from fintechs, from customers. I think that is the essence of open banking, because all this, what we have achieved, I think would be, we would not achieve even 10% if we would not openly share thoughts, problems, issues, and getting this feedback. So I think that is magnificence of all this journey.
I agree. Without collaboration between fintechs, banks, customers, this would never have happened.
Great. Were you about to say something, Jose, or?
Well, just if I have time, I say that I agree with them that there's a lot of sharing, and the sharing is good because all of us are starting. Like all of us are starting, we are building by looking to each other and trying to get some meetings with other banks, trying to see how do you do this, how do you do that. And we learn a lot from the mistakes of the others. We learn from ours, and people like to know our mistakes just for not repeating them, right? In the end, they are really valuable, more than success, because success could be even for luck, but there is always the fracas, and the fracas, there is a reason behind or something that was overlooked, and that's what is bringing the rest of the banks in the right path. That's what I understand.
That's a very nice way to end as well. So thank you very much to all of you for sharing and for sharing your knowledge and your perspective on this discussion. And thank you to the audience for being active. That was very nice. Just leaves me to well, thank everybody and have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.